Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Thursday, June the 26th. And welcome to our commentary. Well, I have a post over at the American Thinker today, and I've got another one tomorrow, Friday, talking about this election in New York, and as I call it, the aftermath, because there's just a lot of questions being asked and a lot of concerns, really, within the Democrat Party as to what this will mean to the party going forward, not just in New York, but on a national basis. I mean, clearly, the left of the Democrat Party, the squad, if you want to call it that, has really been emboldened by this election. They suffered some defeats in recent elections, but this one was a huge victory for them. This is a big, big one for the, let's say the left wing of the party. And the post that I have tomorrow, well, the one that I have today talks a little bit about what's going to happen next, and I think that they're going to have to figure out, a couple of candidates are going to have to come together, either the Republican or whatever. They're going to have to come together and frankly support Adams. Now, Adams is not a perfect choice, I'm sure, and he's got some problems, but he may be the only one. If the Republican joins Adams, then there might be between those two enough to defeat Mandami. That's how I see it. That may be the formula, because apparently Cuomo is not going to run. Apparently he's not running, and I think it may be too late for someone to run. I mean, I would love to have Lee Zeldin run as the Republican nominee. I don't know if it's too late to do that. Maybe not, but I think it may be too late to come up with a candidate after the primary. I don't know what the laws are or the rules are, but it would be fantastic, as I say, if Lee Zeldin, who's now running the EPA in the Trump administration, if he were, let's say, to give that up and run as the Republican nominee, I think he can do it. But, he came, within 5 points of winning the governor's race the last time around. So I think he would have the base and the credibility to win that election in New York. Remember, there's a lot of unhappy people in New York. It's not like, the Democrats are, swimming in popularity. Adams is not swimming in popularity either. So a new face, a credible face like a Lee Zeldin would probably win. But I don't think he can do this, which means we're kind of stuck with Adams and Mandami being the new Democrat who won the other night. I think that's it. That's the choice. There may be third parties, but those are the two. One of those two is going to win. Now, the article that I have coming out Friday morning talks about the impact that this is all going to have on the Jewish vote. The Jewish vote is very important in New York City. And historically, the Jewish vote has been a very strong backbone of the Democrats. And, somebody was explaining, because I didn't understand it, frankly, and somebody was explaining to me that it goes back to 1948 when President Truman, Democrat, recognized the state of Israel, and that Democrats have had this sense of loyalty to the Democrat Party because of that. And I understand that. I understand. I mean, look, I understand that. So they're very strong Democrat constituency in New York City. And but you have to wonder, though, if you're a Jewish voter and you take into consideration what this guy Mandami has said, some of the groups that he's been hanging around with. I mean, he's been, let's just say, not exactly the most friendly the Jewish Americans of any candidate that you can find. So, are the Jewish votes going to be there for him? Are they going to go to somebody else? I don't know. Now, there's another reality, too, that comes into play. The turnout on Tuesday's primary was awful. So there's a lot of people who didn't vote in the primary. A lot of people who didn't vote, who I assume can register to vote before November. I assume they can do that. So if you could come up with an alternative to this guy and have a good marketing campaign, probably they can stop him. But they got to get going. because it's already the end of June and the election is going to be, I believe, in November. So you're talking basically, what, 4 months? They got 4 months of campaigning. I'm assuming that the campaign will start after Labor Day, which is a tradition. But maybe it'll start before that. I don't know. But you got to have a strong candidate or a strong message to defeat this guy, because he does have some economic support. A lot of the things that he's saying are just pure garbage, that he's going to open up, government grocery stores, and he's give away this and give away that. And I mean, that's just not going to happen. And it's not going to happen because New York is already having problems attracting or keeping taxpayers. I mean, the taxpayers are fleeing New York like crazy. So here you have this guy who's talking about raising your taxes more to pay for a bunch of things. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. In fact, in my post today, I asked the question, how much longer are the Clintons or the Cuomo family going to be in New York? Because, it's people like them, the Clintons and the Cuomos, the more traditional Democrats, who really were beaten the other night by these voters. So we'll see. But they're going to have to figure out how to stop them. I'm projecting, again, based on what I've read, that he's going to get somewhere around 40 to 45% of the vote. That's probably what he's projected to get. So there's roughly a majority of votes out there in play. If they could focus on one candidate, I'm pretty sure they can defeat him. But if you split the vote between the Republican and Adams, then probably not. So the Republican really needs to reconsider, sit back for a second and really reconsider whether, you want to be, the candidate who elects this man by default, or whether you would rather join Adams and at least try to stop him. The problem with the Republican candidate, I think his last name is Silva, Curtis Silva, I believe is his name, is that he's done very poorly before in these elections. Hasn't exactly been a very strong candidate. Now, the party is not very strong in New York. That's another problem. You don't have a Giuliani anymore, and that's a huge problem. So we'll see what happens. But it's created a lot of controversy. This election has created, or this, not election, but this primary has created a lot of controversy in the party. And there's a lot of Democrats who are very worried about the future of the party. And, my message to the Democrats is very simple. They brought this upon them. They're the ones responsible for this. They led all these people in the party. They led all these socialists in the party. There was a time in the United States where there was a difference between the Democrat Party and the Socialist Party. You could tell. And the Democrat Party did everything it could to stay away from socialists. But that's changed right now. And these people are in the Democrat Party. Alejandro Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders. I know he's technically an independent, but we know who he caucuses with and who he votes with. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But this could be a very, very difficult night on election night. If he wins and he becomes a mayor of New York City, it's going to be lights out for New York City as far as I'm concerned. Lights out. You're going to have some serious problems in the city of New York retaining whatever taxpayers are left. And a lot of them are living in Florida or South Carolina or North Carolina. That's where a lot of them apparently are moving to. North Carolina and South Carolina. That's where a lot of them are moving to from New York here lately. Well, the big battle over this intelligence report. Look, I am just as interested as anybody else in finding out what happened. But you're not going to find out what happened in 48 hours based on an incomplete report. And I think that's the mistake that CNN made when they ran with that story. What they should have done is to say, look, we have a source who says that the damage may not have been as much as we thought, but at the same time, they're saying the damage may have been a lot. In other words, the report that apparently CNN was relying on was not really a report. It was a very preliminary report. But it wasn't one side or another. It was really pretty much, we don't really know what happened. And I think the fact that CNN was willing to go immediately ahead and run that story, that the damage had only been a few months or something like that, I think that's what angered, I think, a lot of us, that they were willing to go on the record and say that, when in fact, that's not the information that they even had in the first place. So it's one of these things where I believe at the end of the day, this does more harm to the media than anything else. The media is hurt by this because, once again, we're relying on anonymous sources. Apparently 4 people are telling CNN this. Who are these 4 people? Would you mind giving us a hint of who they are? What were they doing Saturday night? Were they following this? Were they in Iran? Are they connected to Israel? I mean, who are these people? Apparently, we don't know. And, I guess we're never going to find out. And that's the problem. That's the problem here, that, they should have waited. CNN should have waited maybe a few weeks, honestly, to come out and even print anything like that. Eventually, we will know. And I'm just as interested as anybody else in knowing how bad the damage was. Okay. But come on, let's wait a reasonable time. By the way, a quick story. I just saw this. That this fellow Kilmar Garcia, or Abrego Garcia, the guy from El Salvador who's deported and brought back, that he may be deported now to a 3rd country. So that's an interesting turn of events. And the Supreme Court came up with another interesting opinion today, and that is that the states can withhold money from Planned Parenthood. I think that's a huge victory for the states and for the pro-life movement as well. And this one makes me feel old. Derek Jeter is 51 years old today. Derek Jeter, I remember when he first came up, 1996, when he was the rookie shortstop for the team, the Yankees, that went on to win the World Series. Derek Jeter, happy number 51, one of my old-time favorite players, certainly one of my old-time favorite Yankees. 51 years old. I guess he's been out of baseball now for almost 10 years. He looks great, by the way. He does the Fox baseball analysis or post-game show or pre-game show or whatever during the postseason. I mean, he looks absolutely great, and that beautiful family and everything else to go with it. But Derek Jeter, 51 years old. It's funny. I read about Derek Jeter that he wanted to play for the Yankees since he was a boy. Since he was in Little League, he wanted to play for the Yankees, and he certainly got his dream come true. Not only was he a successful player, not only did he get to play for the Yankees, played his entire career for the Yankees, and he won, 5 World Series rings? So he got his dream came true. He won 5 World Series rings with the New York Yankees. That's a pretty interesting story. So happy number 51 to Derek Jeter. Thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.